In this demonstration, I'm going to show how to use Nexus Dashboard to identify and resolve an application connectivity issue caused by a policy misconfiguration. We'll walk through how to correlate application health, validate communication paths, and pinpoint configuration changes using analytics and assurance capabilities. In this scenario, the HR department reports that users are unable to access the HR service portal, starting around 1:10 p.m. I'll use Nexus Dashboard to investigate whether this is a network-related issue and identify the root cause. I'll start with traffic analytics to assess application health. At a glance, I can see that overall health is degraded. Looking at the key metrics, drops are flagged with a warning, while other indicators remain healthy. As I review the application view, I can see that a web application running on port 80 is impacted, while other applications remain healthy. Looking at the affected application, I can see the traffic analytics score has increased significantly, indicating degraded performance. The timeline shows the issue starting around 1:10 p.m., aligning with when the problem was reported. This correlation confirms that what users are experiencing is reflected directly in the network telemetry, and the degradation is clearly driven by packet drops. To isolate the issue, I'll initiate a flow collection for the affected traffic. Meanwhile, I'll move to delta analysis. I'll use the latest snapshot captured around 1:22 p.m. during the issue and compare it to an earlier snapshot from 12:04 p.m. when the system was healthy. While that runs, I'll use Search and Explore to validate connectivity between endpoints. I'll check communication between the client and the HR application on port 80. In the current state, I can see that communication is failing. To understand whether this is a new issue or not, I'll load the earlier snapshot and run the same check. In the previous state, communication was successful and a contract existed allowing traffic on port 80. This confirms that the application path was working correctly before and that something has changed between the two states. Looking at the flow analysis results, I can now see that traffic is being dropped at leaf 2, and the drop reason is policy-related. This pinpoints exactly where in the network the failure is occurring and confirms that the issue is tied to policy enforcement rather than routing or physical connectivity. Next, I'll check compliance to validate expected communication behavior. A compliance rule states that the front-end and back-end EPG should always be able to communicate on this port, and I can see that this rule is now violated. Looking into the rule definition, I can see that this communication is expected to be allowed on port 80. This reinforces that the issue is not with the endpoints, but with how policy is currently configured. Now I'll return to delta analysis to review what changed between the two snapshots. I can see new anomalies introduced after the baseline snapshot, including the compliance violation and the now unhealthy service endpoint. Now I'll review policy differences between the snapshots. Here, I can see that the contract filter has been modified. The destination port was changed from HTTP port 80 to port 81. This change explains the issue. The contract no longer allows traffic on port 80, which breaks communication between the front-end and back-end components of the application. As a result, traffic is dropped due to policy enforcement. At this point, I've identified the root cause as a policy misconfiguration. I'll correct the contract filter to restore the expected communication between the application components. After applying the fix, traffic begins flowing normally again. In traffic analytics, I can see the drops clear and the application health score return to normal, confirming that the issue has been resolved. This workflow shows how Nexus Dashboard brings together traffic analytics, flow collections, search and explore, compliance, delta analysis, and anomaly detection to quickly identify and resolve the issue. This demonstrates how Nexus Dashboard enables rapid identification of application issues, validation of connectivity, and precise root cause analysis of policy changes within a unified workflow.